What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're going to talk about week 2. We're going to talk waiver wire pickups, buy low, and sell high guys for trades in order to make your roster better for the upcoming week. So if you had a good week in week 1 and you won your week, this will be a good opportunity for you to find ways to improve your team. And also, if you didn't do so well, this will give you some opportunities to improve your team. And the point I want to make is that if you started out poorly in week 1, it's not over for you. I've seen people come back. The fantasy footballers have talked about this a fair amount as well, seeing guys that start out 0-4, 0-5, etc., and then coming back to win their league. So it doesn't matter how you do in the draft. It matters the moves that you make as the season goes along. And this video is going to show you some guys that you can consider making trades on in order to help your roster go better based on some of my opinion of what I would try to do as a fantasy football owner. I'm a peer, by the way. I'm not a fantasy football expert or anything, but I hope these videos can be helpful for you to just have some ideas to bounce off of. And once again, if you're interested in more content like this, please check out my channel. I make a wide variety of content to include fantasy football as well as some other stuff as well. You can check that out in the description below. So I want to start this off by first prefacing with the fact that this is before Monday Night Football, this pre-recording. I'm going to make a quick edit to the end of this video or pin a comment about my takeaways for the Raiders and Ravens game. But this is pretty much how I handle the rest of the league in terms of what you're going to do with their players. So first, what I want to do is start with some buy low guys. So these are some people that ideally you would want to try to trade for, in my opinion. So first of all, we start with the quarterback position. To me, the top buy low guy at quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. I know Aaron Rodgers had a bad game. I know that people are thinking that, well, he took the whole offseason off. Maybe he's washed up and done. And if you go back to my old videos, I did talk about there is potential for this happening, considering that he spent a lot of time in the offseason in Hawaii or wherever he was, that he might have a down start to this season. But the bottom line is that this guy was the number 1 performer in fantasy football last year in terms of total points. He's also one of the most reliable quarterbacks over the years. So if you can make a trade where you flip somebody who had a very good week, this is an extreme. I'm not sure if anybody would actually do this. But let's say you had Jameis Winston and he played the way he did. And then you might be able to convince somebody, if you package Jameis Winston in with another guy I'm going to talk about whose value might be a little overinflated, like a Mark Ingram or a Sterling Shepard or something like that. You might be able to get Aaron Rodgers, and that might actually be some good value for you there. So try to take advantage of this now, because I highly doubt Aaron Rodgers will have another game like this moving forward. Another guy to consider buying low on is Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert didn't necessarily stand out in against Washington. He's a guy that people have a lot of opinion of him having a breakout season this year, and didn't exactly have the most inspiring start to the season. But this is a good opportunity for him with the next 3 weeks moving forward, because he's got Dallas, Kansas City, and Las Vegas over the next 3 weeks. So Justin Herbert is somebody I see who has a lot of potential for improvement as over the next couple of weeks, and another guy that it would behoove you to have try to buy low on, because I think he will improve as the season goes along. Buy low candidates, and there's going to be a lot of Packers in this video. I'm just putting that out there, but Aaron Jones is my top buy low running back. Aaron Jones, you could almost just throw out this whole game for Green Bay, in my opinion, because they were going up against the Saints, which is, to me, looks like it might be one of the best defenses in football. The other thing, too, is that there's been a lot of news around them in the offseason. Maybe the chemistry isn't there right now, but I think that will improve as the season goes along. The other thing, too, is that Aaron Jones is a very consistent running back over the years, not only in the passing game, but also in the running game as well. Jamal Williams is gone. So there's going to be some more opportunities for him, and he looks like he's pretty much going to be the top back. You can make an argument for A.J. Dillon, but I still think that this is going to significantly be Aaron Jones' backfield. I don't think he's going to have games like this moving forward. And if you can convince somebody to trade away Aaron Jones, I would definitely try to get him on your team. Another guy that I would try to trade for as well is Antonio Gibson. And I talked about this in my video that I made yesterday, but he had 20 carries yesterday, which you kind of expected that he was going to get the bulk load of carries rushing the ball. But passing the ball, the big question is what would he look like with J.D. McKissic, who's the guy who's primarily been the PPR scat back, for lack of better terms, that they would generally kind of pass it to in the passing game. But Gibson actually had 5 targets where McKissic only had 1. So this shows signs that this is becoming an every down back. And especially since he didn't put up a great game against the Chargers, which is an underrated defense, another good time to buy low on him. He's going up against the Giants, who just gave up a lot of yards to the combination of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Antonio Gibson might be able to break out in this game. Another guy to buy low on, Najee Harris. I know he didn't start out very well this season, but as I talked about a little bit in my video yesterday as well, Najee Harris, to me, he's got a lot of opportunity on this team, and they're going up against another tough defense in Buffalo. So I think as the season goes along, you will see more involvement with Najee Harris. He's one of the most dynamic rookies out there. There's not really a lot of other guys on Pittsburgh that are really challenging him for snaps right now. So I would definitely try to get Najee Harris if somebody is not convinced with him. And we talk about this generally week 1 is it's kind of almost like you meet somebody for the first time and your first impression kind of means everything. That's the way it is with a lot of people that may not necessarily know the names of some of these players. Najee Harris is a new guy in this league. A lot of people not super familiar with him if they're not very invested in fantasy football. They might be willing to trade somebody like that for not a lot of value just because he simply hasn't had a lot of sample size in this league so far. Buy low wide receivers. So another Packer, Davante Adams. I know it's kind of a repetitive theme here, but I highly doubt the Packers are going to have another game like that. And I'm honestly surprised I didn't mention this already, but they're playing Detroit next week, which you just saw how San Francisco just lit them up. It's on Monday night. I'm almost positive they're going to have some motivation from the media, etc., to play better, and I think that will happen. So Davante Adams I really like going into this game against Detroit. Another buy low wide receiver, Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs put up decent numbers for you. You would have been happy enough with what he gave you. But the thing that I really liked about him is that he got 15 targets. And again, going up against another good defense that Pittsburgh that probably held him back in terms of his performance he could actually do. We saw what this guy did over the past few years, last year with Josh Allen. So I would definitely try to buy low on Stefon Diggs while you can. 15.9 points about, didn't have a touchdown, but with the amount of targets that he's getting, he will have more opportunity as the season goes along. All right. And then others buy low wide receivers are the Chicago Bears. I talked about this a little bit as well in the last video, but I think that a lot of the reason they just weren't able to get the ball down the field is because, one, they had Andy Dalton as quarterback, and then 2, they're going up against the Rams, which is a very talented defense as well. So I think that the opportunity will come for guys like Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney as the season goes along, but it's probably more than likely not going to happen right away. Maybe you give yourself a little bit of time with these guys, but I would buy low. And then I think when Justin Fields starts, which it's looking like it's probably going to happen relatively soon because they're already putting him in week 1 for some plays, then I would definitely try to see if you can take advantage of getting Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney before that happens, and then you can reap some of their value later on. Defense. So, again, all of this buy low, sell high is stock up, stock down. So last week I said the number 1 buy low or sell high defense was Tampa Bay because they're going up against Dallas, potential for a shootout, and sure enough they had -3 points. But this week I think they're one of the top buy low defenses because they are going up against Atlanta, which really did not play well on offense last week, and I think that Tampa Bay will likely rebound in that game. I think the pass rush is definitely going to get to Matt Ryan, a lot less mobile than Dak Prescott is. See if you can buy low on Tampa Bay. And then other teams to keep in mind that are buy low. Cleveland going up against Houston. I think they could rebound this week. And then Denver. Denver played pretty well against New York, but over the next 2 weeks, they got the Jets and the Jaguars. So if you can get them in advance of those two matchups, you can really get a lot of value going into those games. And then never buy low on a kicker. That's all I have to say about that. All right, sell high. So these are guys I would definitely consider trading away. And this is all relatively. I'll try to give some examples as I go through this. But the top quarterback that I would try to sell high on, and it's hard to explain because I do actually really like this guy for fantasy purposes. But Jalen Hurts, if you could try to sell him after this game for one of the elite quarterbacks, based on how Jalen Hurts played, I would try to do that. I really don't think anybody would do this, but if somebody was offered a straight-up trade for Jalen Hurts for Aaron Rodgers, somebody might do that because there are probably people that believe that Aaron Rodgers might be washed up at this point after that game. Some people make some pretty significant overreactions like that. And Jalen Hurts significantly outplayed Josh Allen too. So again, very unlikely, but if you create some kind of package of some flex players and Jalen Hurts and acquire Josh Allen, that might be worth it. Again, I personally would rather have somebody like Hurts, but I think if you're in a straight-up trade situation where somebody is willing to give you a more consistent quarterback who has more of that longevity like Aaron Rodgers, then I would try to consider that flipping Jalen Hurts. But you have to really be careful that you're not giving up too much value for somebody like that because Hurts, I think, is a pretty good quarterback for you to kind of have as a late-round guy as the season goes along. Other sell-high players. So Melvin Gordon, to me, is another significant sell-high. And I say this because Melvin Gordon, he had a good fantasy game. He was a top 10 running back for this week. But he also had a 70-yard touchdown. And if you take away that touchdown run, he had 10 carries for 30 yards. So nothing really that stood out there. So you also have Javonte Williams in there as well, who is splitting touches. And Javonte Williams, you take out that 70-yard run, he had more yards per carry and generally looked more explosive at times than Melvin Gordon did. So if you could try to trade Melvin Gordon, considering the name value that he's had for some of his past fantasy performances, I would try to do that. And another guy that I would try to sell high on, and I don't really think he has a lot of value to begin with, but Mark Ingram. I'm going to talk about him a little bit in the waiver section coming up as well. But Mark Ingram is somebody that, again, played pretty well in game one. There might be some people that are convinced that he's back to the way he was. I really don't know why anybody would think that, but he's another name that people recognize, and you might be able to get more value out of him than he's actually worth, is what I'm trying to say. Wide receivers. So, again, I talked about this as well, but my top wide receiver to sell is Amari Cooper. I know people are probably thinking that's crazy because he was the number one fantasy producer for this past week at the wide receiver position. And I think he was actually for all positions the top performer. Let me double check this. He was, yeah. He just outperformed Tyreek Hill and Kyler Murray. But Amari Cooper, as I've talked about, is known for a career of up and down performances. He'll follow up games like this from time to time with one catch for 10 yards. Do I think that's going to happen as often with Dak Prescott's development? No. But I am saying that I do not think that he is going to last all season as a top 5 wide receiver. If you can get somebody like if somebody offered me Davante Adams for Amari Cooper, I would 100% do that, no questions asked. Same with Stefon Diggs, guys I mentioned in my buy low section. So just keep that in mind because I think he could be good value, but I think you can get better value out of him, especially given that first performance. Antonio Brown, kind of the same way. I think he could have a good season, but he's another big name that you could probably get some people that are AB fans to really be convinced that he's coming in for a resurgence. And then if you can get like Davante Adams or Stefon Diggs for him again, that would be an excellent heist for you. Another guy to consider to sell high on as well, kind of the mid-tier, is Robbie Anderson. He's a guy that's kind of had some up and down projections of how they view him, but he had this game. So he started off his season with 1 catch for 59 yards and a touchdown, and that is exactly what he did a few years ago. And in week 1, he had 1 catch for, I believe, something around 60 yards for a touchdown, and he really did not sustain that performance throughout the season. He's a guy that's very much known for deep play touchdowns, but not a lot of consistency. Try to see if you could flip him for some value. I don't think you can get anything spectacular out of it, but I'm very concerned about him only getting 3 targets in week 1 compared to DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, who look a lot more involved. And then, this is another point that I've talked about. The sell high tight end for this week is Rob Gronkowski. And again, number 1 tight end for this past week, but I do not think he will continue to put up number 1 tight end value throughout the whole season. And this is a guy that I'm sure you can get people to actually believe that he is back to the way he was in New England, back when him and Tom Brady were together in 2015, prime Gronk type seasons. But it's just, I don't see it realistically happening. And this is because Tampa Bay's offense is going to split the ball around. Some guys are going to have dud weeks from time to time. And if you can get a tight end along the lines of George Kittle, who is a great buy low tight end, I would definitely try to consider trading Gronk for George Kittle. That's something I would definitely try to do personally. And I apologize. George Kittle I was going to talk about a little more in my buy low section. I skipped over that briefly. I do apologize about that. But George Kittle over his next 3 weeks, I'll talk about him briefly. He's got Philadelphia. Could be a relatively porous defense. Green Bay, who just got lit up by the Saints, and they just gave up a touchdown to their tight end, Juwan Johnson. And then Seattle is also on the schedule. So there's a potential bounce back weeks for George Kittle coming. Sell high defense. So going to talk about them on waivers, but I think if you can try to get the number 1 defense again, sell high on Arizona after this week. See what kind of value you can get, because people will probably react to the fact that, oh, this is the number 1 defense this week. They're going to be the number 1 defense all season. But the bottom line is that this is a waiver wire pick. And I know this is going to sound a little bit contradictory to what I'm saying, but if you could game the value, Arizona could be a very beneficial defense that I will talk about as a very good stream option. But if you can get somebody to give you a better piece, like a flex for Arizona, I would definitely try to do that, and then just look for other stream options out there. I think that's better value than going off of Arizona for 1 week. But that being said, Arizona is still good value for you to have. And then sell high on every single kicker you can. If everybody ever wants a kicker from you for anything, I would just do it. That's just me personally. Waivers. So we'll go through the waiver wires. And what I'm going to do is talk about each position. I'm going to talk about players I like and players I don't like at the position. I call them waiver wire tricks. So the QBs that I like for waivers are Jameis Winston for this next week, because he's going up against Carolina. I think that he's going to have some opportunity against them to really put up some good numbers again. I don't know if I like him all season, but I think that he has shown that he can grasp an offense and limit his turnovers, and that could lead to success against Carolina, which honestly, I think is a worse defense than Green Bay. I just think that Green Bay's offense just kind of was out of sync for that game for some reason. But I do think that Jameis Winston is a good quarterback for this next week. And then another quarterback that I really like, who's underrated as well, is Teddy Bridgewater. He is facing Jacksonville next week, which, by the way, just got blown out by the Texans and Tyrod Taylor. So Teddy Bridgewater, I think, will have some great value for week 2. I really like him as somebody to pick up if he's available on waivers. Guys that I don't like, I just talked about him, Tyrod Taylor. So Tyrod Taylor is he had a good first week, and he's not a bad stream option from time to time, given his rushing capabilities. But going up against the Cleveland Browns, I think that they will very much be on a revenge tour mindset after just losing the Chiefs in a close game. I think they will blow out the Texans, and I think they will get a sense of reality to what they really are. Running backs. So the running backs that I like for this week, and I was debating between which one I actually liked more, but I am actually very high on Kenneth Gainwell for Philadelphia. I think he looked very good in his first game. Pretty much replaced Boston Scott in his role. And Miles Sanders has had some issues with consistency in the past. So if Gainwell continues to develop and outperform Sanders, then he might have a greater role in this offense as it moves forward. It's asking a lot, and this week is tough because there's not really a lot of running backs that necessarily stood out, but Gainwell is a decent stash to consider in your league if he's still available. Another one that's out there too that I like, and this is the guy that everybody's talking about, Elijah Mitchell. But I am cautious a little bit about Mitchell because I do question, based on this team, if he really will break out as much as people are thinking that he will. 49ers run a committee a lot. He's probably looking like he's going to be the number one running back at this point going into this next week. But I just have a very hard time seeing that consistency last the whole season. So I think Mitchell is another guy that you might want to consider if you can pick up on waivers to try to sell him, because I don't think he's going to consistently maintain games like that. Maybe Trey Sermon will get involved later on. Maybe JaMychal Hasty will get involved later on. We've seen this with San Francisco over the last 3 seasons. Their running back system is the definition of Russian roulette. It's just all over the place. I just personally would not even... I would be very cautious starting Mitchell, but I would like him to pick him up and then see what kind of value you can trade him for. Guys that I don't like, Corderelle Patterson. He had the most yards for the Falcons, and then he also had some receptions here and there, but I don't think he really is going to give you anything more than just a steady floor at best. Mark Ingram, I talked about him a little bit as well. He got a lot of volume this week, but he was also going up against the Jags, which actually looks like a pretty terrible team. He gets Cleveland next week, as well as in weeks 4 and 5, Buffalo and New England. So I personally don't see that value manifesting throughout the season. Wide receiver. So some good wide receivers to consider. Sterling Shepard I like because I think that he's got he showed that he's getting the most targets on the Giants. So this is a team that's probably going to be passing a lot because we're probably behind a lot. But if he can continue to stay involved, I think that he's going to have a lot of opportunity for the team. Kenny Golladay might start to kind of creep in and get some more target shares, but Shepard is some good value for this team if they're especially going to be coming back from behind. Another guy that I like, especially given the matchup in week 2, Nelson Agholor. Got a lot of targets from Mac Jones. He gets the Jets next week. Could be some good value for you to pick up on waivers if he's available. Other guys that I like that are a little more of a stream option are Tim Patrick for the Broncos. They just had an injury to Jerry Jeudy, and Patrick got some involvement, got a touchdown. He could have a little more targets go his way as the Broncos transition to an offense without Jeudy. Honestly, personally, I think Fan is going to get more of those targets, but Tim Patrick is somebody to keep an eye on because he's been around, he's familiar with the system. Other guys that I like, and this is more of a guy to keep your eye on, Anthony Schwartz for Cleveland. He did have a lot of involvement for them in Cleveland. They tried to get him involved in the rushing game as well as passing game. So I think that they realized that aside from Odell and Jarvis Landry, they really don't have a third receiver. And this guy, I could see them trying to groom into a position where he steps up as the number 3 receiver. And if Odell has his health concerns continuing, he'll have more opportunity as the season goes along. So somebody to keep an eye on. Wouldn't be surprised if he breaks out later this season. Guys that I don't like, Zach Pascal. He has games like this all the time where he'll go off for 2 touchdowns and look like he's a fan favorite of the quarterback in Indianapolis, and then all of a sudden the next week doesn't even catch a pass. So I would only like him if you try to pick him up and then trade him, but I would not feel comfortable starting Zach Pascal going into week 2. They also play the Rams, so keep that in mind. Speaking of the Rams, Van Jefferson Had a nice touchdown catch from Matt Stafford where he fell down and then got back up, wasn't touched, and scored. But I don't see this consistently going on throughout the season. Personally, if you have him, I would try to see if you can trade him. Danny Amendola, another guy on waivers that I personally don't like because he did get a touchdown with Houston, and he's another name that has been around for a while, and people might be getting excited about him, but I just don't see that consistency lasting throughout the season. Anthony Miller is also coming back from injury, so that will probably limit his opportunities. Tight end position. So the tight end that I do like is Juwan Johnson for the Saints. I think he will have some opportunities. He goes to the Jets next week, which is not a great defense, but also the fact that the Saints are relatively void of guys that can step up right now because Michael Thomas is out. So it could be a good passing option for the Saints with Jameis Winston moving forward. Somebody to keep an eye on, but it's not somebody that I would really feel super confident starting week to week just yet. And then Jared Cook is a stream option that I like for this week. He gets the Dallas defense, which just gave up almost 30 fantasy points to Rob Gronkowski last week. I think that he has potential to go off next week. Played pretty well with Justin Herbert. Got 8 targets last week. Could be a good stream option for you. And then a trick. This is the typical thing with tight ends that you want to watch out for. So you look at the numbers of Chris Manhertz. He had a total of 9.2 fantasy points. And you're like, oh, that's pretty good. But then you look deeper and he had 1 catch, 22 yards, and a touchdown. And you want to always avoid tight ends like this because that is more than likely a situation where he was the 4th or 5th option for the quarterback, and then he was open and they threw it to him, and he's a touchdown. And he gets a touchdown. So my point is you look at the same team at Jacksonville, they had James O'Shaughnessy, another tight end, who had 6 catches for 48 yards. He finished with a total of 10.8 points. Relatively about the same, but I would much rather have somebody like O'Shaughnessy who's got 6 catches, even though he's not getting the touchdown. So just really pay attention to the target shares with some of these tight ends because some of these guys like Manhertz are traps to me. I would generally try to avoid them. And then defenses to keep an eye on for this week, some stream options that I like. Arizona, I talked about them a little bit. Got a lot of potential with that pass rush that they demonstrated. The Saints as well. The Saints have a really great stretch of games coming up where they have, I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but they have the Washington football team in there, the Giants in there. There's some great matchups that they have potentially over the next few weeks to keep in mind. So, yeah. And then another defense that I could consider as well if you're really in a pinch, the Giants against Washington. I know the Giants just got carved up by the Broncos, but getting a team on a short week without their starting quarterback could be some good opportunities. I see that game generally being very low scoring, so could be some opportunities for the Giants there if you're really in a pinch for a defense. And then some kickers to consider. So 2 of the top 3 kickers this week were Robbie Gould and Matt Gay, and the formula is relatively there for them. So the formula that I like when I'm looking at kickers is they're getting down the field enough to where they're going to be able to score, but maybe they're having troubles getting it into the end zone. And, San Francisco running back injuries that we talked about, there could be some issues there for them. The Rams, same thing. Cam Akers got injured. They also kind of struggled a little bit at times punching the ball in the end zone with Darrell Henderson there. So this is the formula for where these kickers can collect field goals instead of extra points. Or, kicks instead of extra points. I don't know if a field goal is like the technical term for the extra point or what. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it's the 3-point kick is what a field goal is. But what I'm saying is that you get opportunities for more points when they're kicking for 3 points instead of for 1 point. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're looking for kicker streams. That's all I've got for this video for this week. Let me know what questions you have. I will be posting a question and answer video on Saturday night, so keep an eye out for that. And if you have questions, comment below in this video, and I will try to get them answered for you. for that video. If you comment below, I will include your questions, shout you out, etc. And go into depth about your what you're looking at for your roster. So hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.